Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org. You're listening to Idaho Matters from the studios of Boise State Public Radio News. I'm Gemma Gaudette. A new state law passed in 2024 could significantly impact how homes, commercial buildings, and roads develop around McCall. Valley County wants to shrink and take back control of the city's impact area, and they will host a public hearing on the issue today. Our Troy Oppie reports.
A city's area of impact is a buffer zone between city limits and the county. The area usually carries the same or similar zoning requirements as the city. At a meeting in May, Valley County Commissioner Neil Thompson said residents don't like having to comply with codes from a city they don't have representation in.
The biggest thing I've heard from constituents out there is that they're tired of confusion. They want to go for a building permit. They want to do whatever on their property. They want one governing entity.
State lawmakers in 2024 overwhelmingly approved new limits and criteria on where impact areas are and how far they reach. The law gave counties the final say as the governing body. Here's that bill's sponsor, Nampa Republican Todd Lakey, in a committee hearing last year.
Areas of impact are where growth is anticipated and planned to occur, where the city expects to annex in the near future. And then with that expectation, the cities have the opportunity for more notice and input on county decisions that occur.
In Valley County, the city of McCall says it's worked proactively with the county for decades to manage its area of impact with a joint city-county planning and zoning commission. Michelle Gronevelt has been with the city for 2 of those decades. She's now the Director of Community and Economic Development.
McCall's been very intentional about its planning over the last several decades. And so it's been intentional about that community character. And so you don't really know when you're in the county versus the city.
McCall submitted its own map to Valley County, proposing new boundaries that comply with the new state law. The county in May debuted its own version, shrinking the area of impact around McCall by 97%.
The county has also indicated that they would like to take over the administration of the impact area and apply unincorporated Valley County codes to those areas. So basically repeal all of the planning work that has happened to date.
City Council member Mike Machezik says the county plans were disappointing.
It is a dramatic change that is proposed by the county. And it's not driven by data that I'm aware of. It's driven by county commissioners saying, I think this should be in or I think this should be out. So it appears to be subjective.
In public meetings, Valley County commissioners appeared to let some landowners decide if they wanted to be in the area of impact or not, down to contacting some people directly. Machezik prioritizes areas of impact differently.
Managing growth says that we have industrial zones, we have commercial zones, we have residential zones, and that we're going to keep the auto wrecking facility or the hotel or whatever it might be, any commercial use in an area where there's other compatible uses.
Right now, Valley County Code has one type of zone. Projects are managed through conditional use permits. Machezik is concerned that there aren't requirements for how far away developments and landscapes should be from waterways, so runoff from lawn and garden care, for example, doesn't go into Payette Lake, or how private driveways intersect with roads like Highway 55.
The benefit of having that is that the landowners have predictability.
Valley County Commission Chair Sherry Maupin says the county's proposed boundaries do comply with the new state law. The county's map also factors in the lack of any planned growth for the McCall Sewer District. That district says it needs a new wastewater pond and other repairs to handle the growing population.
City sewer planning is going to be key and critical. Unfortunately, we're behind the 8 ball in McCall and need an opportunity to manage that before growth occurs.
Maupin says the county will add some restrictions to the code to address concerns. 50-foot setbacks from waterways is one. Landscape and other specialty requirements along the scenic byway are another. She says changes should be consistent across the county to limit confusion. But city officials are concerned that the changes could lead to a patchwork of building types and land use the city will grow into in coming decades. Long term, McCheswick questions whether county officials will always be the best choice for making decisions that can be hyper-local.
I'm not saying that I'm for or against growth, but let's at least try to look at the big picture and try to collectively make the best decisions for our community, for those of us that live here, for our children, for the future.
On Monday, July 7th, Valley County will hear public comment on the proposed changes to McCall's area of impact boundary and governance. The county will also present a timeline for updating its building codes. That hearing begins at 2 p.m. at the county courthouse in Cascade. Troy Oppie, Boise State Public Radio News.
And Troy is joining us now to talk more about this. So, Troy, the impact zone was established more than 40 years ago. Can you talk to us more about the zone management between the city and the county?
Yeah, so these impact areas for cities are officially county property, but the only thing that changes is the zoning and planning governance, and that's typically tied to what the city decides for its area. Now, McCall's has been under it has its own joint planning and zoning commission. There are members from the city, there are members from the county that are appointed by county commissioners, and that who has managed this area of impact for decades and kept things largely in line with what the city of McCall is doing as the city continues to grow outward. So this
So,
long-time relationship goes back to the late 70s and certainly has gotten a lot more important in the past couple of, well, really the last decade as McCall has grown exponentially.
so, Troy, something that struck me about the end of your piece was about the concerns over counties making rules that impact cities. Is that a fair assessment of this issue?
Yeah, I mean, McCall is concerned. Excuse me, McCall is concerned that the county coming in and having its, by comparison, very lax building zoning code
Hmm.
implemented over areas where the city has previously had control of what gets built and how it's developed is going to um, really take those areas backwards and hurt the city's consistent growth around that footprint. And Valley County is a little bit unique. It has, generally speaking, fewer county building and zoning codes or zones than most Idaho counties do. So this is kind of a unique situation to McCall and Valley County itself. One thing that County Commission Chair Sherry Maupin told me is that they do want to be consistent, and they're moving forward with these planned changes to this area of impact map and which areas will be in and which areas will be out, but they are going to come back and they plan to introduce changes to the county zoning law that will govern things like setbacks from waterways, scenic byway requirements, and that kind of governs how things look around Highway 55, for example, and how private driveways might attach to the highway itself. You don't want a million of those all connecting to the
Hmm.
same highway. That could create some problems. So that's how the county is trying to approach this. McCall, though, is just really concerned that this opens the door to a lot of not unregulated, but the phrase I used in the piece was a patchwork of development from parcel to parcel.
Okay, million dollar question here, Troy. Any idea which way this might go?
The county has, in the public comments that were made during previous county commission meetings, the county seems pretty steadfast in its opinion that, this vastly reduced area of impact map, going down to under 700 acres in total from about 22,000 is the way they're going to go, because the state law now says that if you don't have a parcel that's expected to be annexed into a city within the next 5 years, it's not appropriate for it to be in an area of impact. As I mentioned in the story, the sewer district in McCall, its growth limitations and capacity issues are another factor that is really problematic for meeting that standard of areas expected to be annexed in the city in the next 5 years. And it seems to me like Valley County, which we'll hear comments on this afternoon in just over an hour, in fact, it seems like they probably will push forward with a drastically reduced map. Now, one of the differences in the new state law and the intention, it seems like, from planners and other folks that I talk to is that the state does want, city and county planners to revisit this idea, these maps more often than they have been in the past. So, the county could come back and change the map of the area of impact at any time. You don't have to be in an area of impact to request annexation into a city, including in McCall in this case. And so residents who want to be annexed in can still make that request, even if they're not officially in an area of impact.
Well, Troy, really appreciate the reporting you've done on this. We've been speaking with Boise State Public Radio reporter and All Things Considered host Troy Oppie about McCall's impact area and a hearing that's set for this afternoon at 2 p.m. So, folks, if you are listening at 6 p.m. or 8 p.m., there may have already been a decision made. So continue to listen to Boise State Public Radio News as we bring you the latest on this. And that'll do it for this episode of Idaho Matters. Thanks so much for listening. And just a reminder, you can find all of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts.
These days, there's so much news, it can be hard to keep up with what it all means for you, your family, and your community. The Consider This podcast from NPR features our award-winning journalism. 6 days a week, we bring you a deep dive on a news story and provide the context and analysis that helps you make sense of the news. We get behind the headlines. We get to the truth. Listen to the Consider This podcast from NPR.